What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Today, we're going to be breaking down some of the projections for the hitters on the Toronto Blue Jays. I'll be giving you my opinions on if I think they're too high, too low, or right on. Now, just for reference, we're using the Zips projections on Fangraphs. If you don't know what that resource is, great resource for projections just like these. And if you're somebody who does fantasy baseball on your own time, great resource to get you ready to go for your upcoming fantasy baseball drafts. But anyways, the first guy that we have is Bichette. Zips projections for him: 23 home runs, 286 batting average, 334 OBP, and a really interesting stat that I have to throw out there: 27 stolen bases. Now, last year, shortened 60-game season, so it's really tough to gauge sort of where these players are at because, you know, such a small sample size, and a guy like Bichette was hurt for a portion of the season. But when we did see Bichette, I think what we're starting to see from him is a very mature hitter. He's shown the power. He's got not plate discipline, but he's got good control over himself, I think, at the plate, good bat control. Not the greatest shortstop yet in terms of defense. We've seen him make some errors, but we have seen some flashes of good defensive ability, and I think he's definitely athletic enough to be a good middle infielder. The one thing that I do have to say about Bichette, now I don't know how this stat ended up at the end of the season, but about midway through the season, Bichette was swinging at over 50% of the balls outside of the strike zone. Now, obviously, you know, he's a good hitter, but that's a huge issue because that's, you know, raising the strikeouts, decreasing the walks, and is a big decrease to his OBP. And now with guys like, you know, Marcus Semien, George Springer in the lineup, the power we could get from like Teoscar, again, hopefully, guys like that, increase from Guerrero as well. I think Bichette has to be able to switch his mindset this year, right? He was a free swinger last year. We know that. But now, you know, the Blue Jays lineup could be doing wonders if Bichette increases that OBP and all of a sudden you're getting men on base for your bigger hitters, your possible 40 home run hitter and a guy like George Springer, hopefully 30 from Vlad Guerrero. I think that, you know, 23 home runs like Zips has, absolutely realistic. I think that's a perfect number. 286 batting average, again, he's a great hitter. Bichette knows how to hit a baseball, he just can't walk. 286 is realistic. 334, realistic from what we've seen from Bichette in the past. I hope his mindset at the plate switches and he becomes more selective. Right now, I'd say 334 is realistic. I'd like to see him push like a 360 number. And then in terms of stolen bases, this is a guy who's only stolen 8 bases in his career so far. 27 is a very high number. It would be the upper end in all of the major leagues, and I don't think he's going to be doing that with a 334 OBP, and given what we've seen from him, you know, base running in the past. Next up, we got George Springer, projected 28 home runs, 273 average, 355 OBP. I'm really excited to see what we get from George Springer. I think 28 home runs is too low. This is a guy who in the past full season that he played in 2019 set his career high in home runs. He's definitely a guy, you know, who could push 40 home runs. Never done it so far in his career, definitely has the power, and I also think he has the protection in this lineup. I think a lot of the home runs that he could hit, again, is going to be dependent on if pitchers can be able to pitch around him. You know, the type of years that Guerrero has, the type of year that Bichette has, even hopefully Simeon has a bounce back year. But I think 28 home runs is a low number. I think 35 is the number that I would set for Springer. 273 batting average, yeah, right around there. Again, Springer is a great hitter. You can say what you will about the Astros scandal, but he's been their best hitter over the course of the past several years. And if you look at the accumulative stats in the American League, since really George Springer's come into the league, he has been in the upper end. So, you know, great proven hitter. 355, yeah, this is a guy who strikes out a bit too much, but he's also a guy who walks. And I'm really excited, again, to see what we get from Springer. Next up, Marcus Semien, guy who in 2019 was one of the best hitters in the American League. He's an improved middle infielder. I don't know where he's actually going to play in the infield for the Blue Jays, if that's at second base, third base, the outfield. But they have him projected 23 home runs, 257 batting average, 333 OBP. He had a down year in 2020. I don't think he's, you know, going to have a problem bouncing back this year. This is a great hitter at the plate. And, you know, I've spoken to it in past videos about what bouncing back would mean for a guy like Marcus Semien. because he's going to be a guy hitting 7 in the Blue Jays lineup, and I don't think that necessarily he's going to be back to number 3 in AL MVP, but I think he's going to be a perfect hitter for the 1-year, $18 million contract that the Blue Jays paid. 23 home runs, absolutely, I see that. I would love for him to push 30. I think 25 is realistic. 257 batting average, right around there. That could be a little too high. I'd put the number right around 250. 333 OBP. Again, a guy who can walk, and I love having a guy like Marcus Semien as your number 7 spot. He's going to be a real fun hitter, after all of this power that the Blue Jays have. And, even adding some power, some big bat at the number 6 or 7 spot, wherever he is in the Blue Jays lineup. Next up, we have Cavan Biggio, projected 22 home runs, 230 batting average, 342 OBP. Now, here's the issue that I have with Cavan Biggio. I love Cavan Biggio. I think he's such a hard worker. He's, the type of athlete that Toronto fans really like. MLB de-juiced the balls a little bit, and although Biggio hasn't necessarily had trouble with power in the past, he's a guy who does not hit the ball hard. And with de-juiced baseballs, if any one of the guys in the Blue Jays lineup really now struggles with power, it's going to be Cavan Biggio. 22 home runs, in my opinion, isn't a hefty projection, but I think it's still too high. Cavan Biggio, in a realistic world for the Blue Jays, is a guy who hits number 8 or number 9 in the Blue Jays lineup. Hopefully, a guy like Danny Jansen can figure out his bat at the plate, and then all of a sudden you have an OBP guy in your 9 spot at the bottom of the lineup. I think Biggio, 20 home runs is realistic, right around that number. A 230 batting average, I think is a little low, because I still do think, he can slap the ball around. Hopefully we get some balls into the gap, slap around some singles. Again, production, hopefully, at the lower part of the lineup. 342 OBP. We saw Biggio with his on-base streaks. We know he's a guy who definitely walks. He'll work the counts, does exactly what the Blue Jays will need after all of that power. 342 OBP, realistic. 350, I think, would be the goal for him. Vlad Guerrero, this is an interesting one, because could be a really interesting year for Vlad Guerrero. Slimmed down a bunch. I've spoken to what that's done for guys like Luke Voit and Devers in the past. Guys who struggled in the early parts of their career, all of a sudden, figured out their weight, and all of a sudden, they went from guys who already hit the ball very hard, but then figured out their launch angle problems. Vlad Guerrero's projected 26 home runs, 276 batting average, and a 341 OBP. And I think the big thing for Guerrero is now he has protection in the lineup. I don't think he will see as much off-speed stuff, which gives him a perfect chance to, take that big step forward and show flashes of the Guerrero that we're hoping to see in the future. 26 home runs, I think, is low. I actually think he will hit 30 this year. 276 batting average, I think, is high. I think he'll be closer to 260, and 341 OBP. Guerrero was a fantastic guy in the minor leagues at getting on base. I really hope he can get back sort of to that level. Next, we have Kirk. Now, this is an interesting guy, projected 10 home runs, 259 batting average, and 329 OBP. Kirk has the potential to be a fantastic hitter. We've seen him at the plate. We've seen him a bit at the major league level. I don't know how much he's going to play, if he's going to be the backup catcher, maybe rotate between DH and first base as well. So it's really tough to gauge sort of where he's going to be. If he plays 10 home runs, completely realistic, I think. 260 batting average, could even be higher, and he's a guy who gets on base. I think 330 is realistic. We got Danny Jansen, 17 home runs, 230 batting average, 322 OBP. I think Danny Jansen is a guy that the Blue Jays could potentially trade. 17 home runs is realistic. I think that Danny Jansen definitely has the power. He's been inconsistent, though, at the plate. I'm really hoping that at the bottom of this Blue Jays lineup, Danny Jansen can find the consistency and develop into the hitter that I think we have seen flashes of in the past few seasons from Danny Jansen. 17 home runs, I think, is realistic, assuming that he's going to be probably the 70% catcher for the Blue Jays. 230 average, it depends. I'd hope it's on the lower side of the expectations for him, but again, we've seen Danny Jansen have some really bad stretches at the plate, and 322 OBP, I think, is right on. 315 would probably be my guess for him. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., 25 home runs projected, 272 average, and a 311 OBP. Gurriel has been one of our best hitters in this lineup over the course of the past few years, and he's really developed, I think, into getting towards the star that we're hoping he's going to be. 25 home runs, I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to be closer to 20. I'd like to see him get the strikeout numbers down like a lot of the hitters in this lineup, and become more of sort of an average doubles type hitter. The power for 25 is definitely there. I'd put him closer to 20. 275 average is what I'm hoping, but I think he'll probably be closer to 265, and 311, 310 OBP I think is right on. Next up, Rowdy Tellez, projected 27 home runs, 261 average, and a 324 OBP. Again, this is another guy I've spoken to it in past videos. I hope the Blue Jays trade Rowdy Tellez because he's a guy who's going to rotate between first base and DH, but he won't get the playing time he probably should. 27 home runs is way too high for Rowdy Tellez, even though he was in the upper end of the Blue Jays in offensive WAR and total WAR last year, because I just don't think he'll get the playing time. So it's really tough to gauge those home run numbers. 260 average, I think, is right there. 220, 225 OBP, I think, is right in the ballpark as well. But it comes down to how much Rowdy Tellez is actually going to get in the lineup for the Jays. Second last guy we got, Randall Grichuk, projected 31 home runs, 249 average, and a 297 OBP. Randall Grichuk took a big step in his approach in the plate last year, from being a guy who had no OPS at all and was only a home run hitter to sort of revising his approach at the plate and becoming just a complete hitter. You know, he didn't only hit home runs. His home run numbers were there last year, but he didn't only hit home runs. He was a guy who hit doubles, hit singles, had his average, OBP, OPS. All those numbers were up on his slash line. And I think, you know, Randall Gritchuck is a guy who could possibly be traded for the Blue Jays. We don't even know how much he's going to end up being in the actual lineup. But he's a guy, I think, who could be a 30 home run hitter. I put him closer to 25 because I don't know if he's going to be an everyday player or how much he's going to play. 250, I think, is right on. 297 OBP, I think, is too low. 315, 320 is where I'd put him if he can, you know, bring that approach that he had last year into 2020. Final guy, we have Teoscar Hernandez, 35 home runs, 247 batting average, and a 312 OBP. Teoscar Hernandez has always had the problems of high strikeouts, not being able to get on base. Really similar problem to Randall Grichuk, but he was in MVP talks last year before he got hurt. 35 home runs, in my opinion, is too high. I don't like that Teoscar Hernandez is a free swinger, a lot like Bichette. 25 home runs, I'd put him at as well. I think, you know, because of what we saw in 2020, the expectations are a little too high. That's why I think you trade him now while he's got that sky-high value. But 25 home runs, I think. The 250 batting average, I think, is right in the ballpark. 312 OBP is really tough because, again, he strikes out a lot. He walks, but the on-base he's always sort of struggled with. 310, sure. I put it right around there, maybe closer to the 300 mark. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for today. If you guys did enjoy today's video, let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think of these projections. Who do you think is going to break out this year for the Blue Jays? If you did enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you again next time.